Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming and welcome. This conversation will be held in English, so there are headphones for the simultaneous translation. I have to say that I'm very glad to have this opportunity to interview the Africa's most celebrated investigative journalist. And so I think I want to introduce you to him soon, first of all. So his name is Aremeyaw Anas. Anas, thank you for coming and welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
He's a Ghanaian journalist, but actually he works in many African countries and in other continents too. And, I still remember Barack Obama's speech when he was praising Anas and his job. And very often, I think we will need more journalists like him in Italy, in Europe. Even though I have to say that here at the International Journalism Festival here in Perugia, the level of journalists is very high. But still, you are doing a very unusual job, different job. As you can see, he is wearing a mask because he can't show his face. He never shows his face, actually, for security reasons. I'm sure you are very curious to hear what he's going to tell us. And so am I. So let's get down to business. And let's start with the first question. And my first question maybe is quite obvious, maybe not. My first question is why? I mean, do you remember the very first time you decided, I will go undercover, I will be an undercover journalist, and why you made this decision?
Well, I think that I grew up in a very normal home where I went through the tenets of journalism. I went to journalism school. But what clearly sticks in the mind of the people, despite our daily schedules as reporters, are stories that have the capacity to impact on people's lives. And I realized that if you took your time and you went through a story and you learned going through all the nuances of that story, it is able to make a meaningful impact. So somewhere in 2009, that's when I did my very first undercover piece. And I recall that when I did it, it was put in the middle page because I was a very small reporter then. But as a result of public outcry, people who thought that the story was good enough, the story was republished on the front page. So from there, I got to know that perhaps it makes more sense to spend a little bit more of time to do proper investigations, to be able to come out with the facts that people want to know.
Which kind of story it was?
Well, it was a story at the Tema motorway in Ghana, where first there were drug people on that road. Secondly, there were police officers who were taking bribes from all hawkers. So I went undercover as a peanut seller, and while selling, I was able to document all these police officers. And this got published. When it was published, all the police officers were sacked.
During an interview, I heard you saying something like, in Africa, journalism is a necessity. And I was really impressed by these words. So I have now the chance to ask you, what do you mean for journalism of necessity? And why in Africa is so necessary?
I have always maintained that undercover journalism is a double necessity for the African continent. The reasons are pretty simple. You see, the continent we've been about 50, 60 years old. We have a mushrooming democracy. We have issues of hunger. We have issues of poverty. We have many issues. Also, we are aware of the fact that journalists are poorly paid. So are our security services poorly paid. So, because of the cultural myth that surrounds the continent, it is better to always get the hardcore evidence that people ought to see. It is only when they see this hardcore evidence that they're able to advise themselves against some of these ills in society. So for me, undercover journalism is a necessity, because that is what we need to be able to open up that educational gap which is suffered by the continent. People want to see. See is believing. It's when they see it live happening, they're able to first of all resonate with it, and then after resonating, then it begins to impact on their lives.
And your work is encompassed in 3 words, which actually represent a sort of a mantra for you, and the technique and the way you do this job, your way of being a journalist. These 3 words are name, shame, and jail. It would be interesting to hear from your voice, what do you mean from these 3 words, which actually are 3 actions?
Well, I have had a lot of reactions from people when I say that my journalism hinges on 3 principles, that is naming, shaming, and jailing. Look, I'm a product of my society, and so is my journalism. And I keep on saying that there is no point in doing journalism that does not benefit society. Before I pick up any story, it is the same society that feeds me with that information to do the story. Look, I've gone through those periods of having read a lot of background information on the African continent. Look, what people are looking for are stories that are developmental. They are stories that impact on the lives of people. So when I say I have done a story, it means I have hidden camera footage of how the person plotted to steal and how he stole it. Now, why do I go to the extent of jailing? Because there's no point in doing journalism that ends up strengthening the bad guys in the city, or better still, in the community. Society always wants progress, and I see no reason at all to combine my efforts with the law enforcement agencies. After all, the police are also looking for the same thing that we are looking for, to keep society clean. And like I keep on saying, Africa has a mushrooming democracy. We don't have time and that laxity. We have a lot of issues of hunger. We have a lot of issues of deprivation. And we cannot spare time to be playing around. There's nothing wrong with collaborating with a state institution. There's nothing wrong with me going to stand in the court of law and testifying against these bad guys. And I can tell you, it works. At least I know that on the continent it has had major impact. Chinese sex trafficking mafia, the guys are in jail for 45 years. AG, Registered General's case, they are in jail for 4 years. The other Ricardo cocaine case, in jail for 8 years. The other man who raped about 13 children as young as 3 and 4 is in jail for 15 years. So many of these bad guys have gone to jail. And let nobody think that what I do is unethical. It is not like that. I've heard apostles sermonizing and giving sermons about the lack of ethics in what I do. That is not true. I strictly abide by the BBC Ofcom rules. The same undercover journalism I do in Ghana, Tanzania, and other countries is the same I do for Al Jazeera. It's the same I do for the BBC. It's the same I do for the CNN. So how come when it's journalism back in Africa, then they have issues with ethics? But this same journalism is replicated in the West, and then there is nothing wrong with it. For me, like I keep on saying, it's about the people. Once your journalism can impact on the lives of your people, that is true journalism. I won't come to Italy and expect that I know everything about Italian journalism. No. I definitely would want to collaborate with an Italian journalist to learn, because it's just natural. So I am saying that if you are coming into Africa to do your journalism, team up with the local guys, because we know the story. We know how to be able to impact positively on our society. Sometimes we clap for our colleagues who come up in Africa to do stories. We are very happy about that. But maybe if they spend just a little bit of time with us, we can all push society forward. We can all have a more meaningful impact on our people.
So there are a lot of bad journalism around. Even Western journalism, there is that word, helicopter journalism, no? People coming to Africa, staying just a few days and trying to cover a story, but it's quite impossible because if you really don't know the country, it's very impossible. But I would like to ask you, what about the other kind of journalists? Because Africa has many good journalists, actually. Are they also doing a good job? I mean, you cooperate with many journalists around when you go around, and let's talk also about your team, because you are not alone. You build up during this year a very strong team, a very professional team. So can you tell us more about you go undercover, but what about the others? How do you organize your investigations? Let's go through a little bit.
Well, I think that the days of parachute journalism are becoming lesser and lesser. It's about time we collaborate, and I'm glad I've already spoken about that. You see, the African story can better be told by Africans. And it's about time, as African journalists, we begin to realize that if the continent is going to move forward, we are going to need us to be the people leading the frontiers. I want to show a lot of respect to my colleagues who have always been coming to Africa because of the interest they've shown on that continent and coming to help us. And I have also, on my own, learned a lot from such collaborations, and it's very good. But for us on the continent, we ought to know that nobody understands those mythical issues than us. And the stories that will come will demonstrate that some of them are just stories that there is no way anybody else can tell it better than us. Regarding my team, yes, I work with a team. I don't do it alone. We try to stick together. I sometimes don't go undercover alone. We will have to go in pairs. But because of the very danger that is associated with it, you see my name on the lead. But I have a backup team, and it is the backup team who make things possible. And everywhere I get the opportunity, I say thank you to the efforts that they give to make sure that things happen undercover.
Before we have some videos to understand better some of your investigation, but let's go to your life. I mean, it's like you live a split life, no? You have a public life that is your job. You have a private life. But don't you feel uncomfortable with this double life? Do you have which problem do you have? Because I think it's very difficult to feel. I mean, do you have time? What do you miss of a normal life? Do you miss party with friends? Do you miss going on the street and do shopping or something like that? Because I don't think is once you made that decision. No, in 2009 you were saying. Then you thought about even what your life was going to be.
Well, I think that journalism, and this is not journalism restricted to only Africa, but especially even here, we have to make a decision. It's a hot kitchen. If you can't bear the heat, get out. Look, the role we play for society is so critical, is so important. Sometimes, if you don't move that story tomorrow, people are going to die. It's a very, very hot kitchen. As we do what we do, we are putting people in jail. We are making people uncomfortable. They are not going to be comfortable with us. They will always threaten our lives. They will always want to kill us. And that has happened in Italy, in the UK, in the US, everywhere. But for Africa, I guess it's part of our growth as a mushrooming democracy. Because Listen, if you read the history of American history, you're going to realize that people like Nellie Blair and co. also at that time in their history had to make those sacrifices. There's been period in Italian history where prominent Italian journalists have died as a result of laying their lives to make sure that they tell the right stories. It is our time in Africa, and the earlier we stand as men and confront with those things, the better. As for the threats and they will kill us and all that, they are part of the game. Like I said, it's a hot kitchen. If you can't cope with it, get out.
Yes. And how do you protect yourself and your family? Apart, I don't want to know your secrets, of course. Apart from not showing your face, what kind of life you have?
Well, I think that I cannot say it all here, but you don't only depend on government security when you break a huge story. Of course, it is in government interest sometimes, not always, to protect you, because if anything happens to you, it's going to create a problem for the government itself. So government may try to send 5, 6, 7, 10 bodyguards around you, but usually we try to make do with internal security, and we've done that over the years. It's unfortunate I can't go further than just leave it there, but it is a combination of factors that leads to security.
Internal security, do you mean private security, your team, or you mean governmental? Because if you are also investigating on corruption and stealing public money.
Okay, so I am investigating corruption of the judges. Now a big story has been published. I'm the only person who can testify or who can make the evidence available. We call it admissibility in the law. So anybody knows that if you take out my lives, then you will not be able to put that evidence before the court of law. So it's in the whole country's interest that a special mechanism is put in place so that I'm not killed. But that is not just it. Internally, I ought to also put my things together. So it's a combination of the two. Sometimes where you see government security saying that they are guarding, I'm not even there. They are just people standing, but I'm not even there. So we try as much to give a nice blend, and we always don't reveal how we do it.
Recently, you were mentioning it. You worked on the corruption case about the high court judges in Ghana. You secretly filmed more than 30 judges taking bribes. And following your investigation, some of them were suspended. And that investigation went viral online. There was also a movie, Ghana in the Eyes of God. That brought many problems. And can you tell us how long it takes to prepare this kind of investigation? And then also the real impact, because I was there in Ghana every day talking about this issue. And also I feel uncomfortable sometimes with because the public opinion had, of course, some reaction. But the judges were very strong against you.
Well, I think that Ghana in the Eyes of God, it took 2 years to investigate, and we had 146 judicial staff caught taking bribes and 34 judges all caught taking bribes. It was such an elaborate investigation. But
how did you enter?
I don't want to restrict it to a Ghanaian phenomenon. It's an African phenomenon. Because like I have always said, Africa is known to have issues of economic problems and many others. But from the research I did, one of the biggest headaches we have is with the various judiciaries. And here I talk about Nigeria, I talk about South Africa, I talk about Kenya, I talk about many other countries. And I keep asking myself, maybe the genocide that happened in Rwanda may not have happened if one judge who sat on one particular case was fair enough. There have been wars in Sierra Leone, there have been wars in Liberia, there are wars in DR Congo. Maybe it's about time we go back to look at the role that judges played in that. The judiciary is a very important organ of government, and it is the last resort of every human being. So when you find a crooked judiciary, and it doesn't matter where, It's a big affront to human existence. And so I took this story very serious. I went undercover together with my team. We filmed all this evidence. And again, it was like a tornado. I mean, during the premiering, to show or not to show, there was a loud noise in Ghana, everybody wanting to see. Also, you want to follow the constitutional provisions. So I eventually petitioned for their impeachment, a petition to the president and as well as the Chief Justice of Ghana. We started a committee hearing, which has led to many of them having been sacked. As I speak now, the hearing is still in place. I had to just steal a little bit of time to join my colleagues here and to learn a little bit. But it's one of the stories that we really took time to go undercover and to film. Like I said, all I do is about hardcore evidence. If I say a judge has taken money, I'm showing how the judge took it, about which case, what is the title of the case, which day, how everything was done. And this is the evidence I put before the committee. Again, one critical thing about the journalism I do is not just about naming and shaming. The jailing bit is also about putting the evidence that has been put together to a text. For me, every journalistic piece of work must stand the test of time. And so it is very interesting when I go before the committee and one judge will come with about 6, 7 lawyers, and then they will put me in the middle and cross-examine me on every single detail of the video I have. For me, I think that is true journalism. We should not be seen as gods in the guise of men. Our work must not be treated as sacrosanct. Our work must be subjected to critical scrutiny by the general public, by the people we accuse, and at the end of the day, let's have an independent panel tell us whether what we have done is true and fair or not. Else, we are going to have a utopic society.
So those judges are still suspended, all of them?
Many of them have been sacked, not suspended, but a few of them whose hearing has not yet started still exist. And immediately I get to Ghana, the hearing still continues.
Okay. Many of your investigations are about human rights abuses, such as slavery, human trafficking, or even the living conditions in psychiatric hospitals or prisons. And we have some videos, because I think it's very interesting also to show some videos just to understand better. So if we could start with the madhouse, we would like to show the audience. Okay, and if you Anas would like to guide us through this video, and okay. Okay. Meanwhile, we are waiting for the video. I would like to ask you more about your your methods and also the devices you use.
Well, I use
Can you share some secrets?
I use a lot more of hidden cameras in my work, and I also use a lot of prosthetics, which we built from London. And that has always helped in the work. And you're able, with the use of very good prosthetic person, you can change from A to Z, because it means that you are just going to wear a different face in that investigation. And they've really worked over the years. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And but have it ever happened to you to, because with these hidden cameras and entering some places maybe you can't go, have you ever broken the law?
Well, I think...
Or being on the verge to...
I think that first of all, subterfuge or undercover journalism, depending on which jurisdiction you are talking about, is using wrong to right the right. So you start by breaking the law. That's true, because you have already taken an identity that is not yours. But you see, it's the end that always justifies the means, as far as I am concerned. Once it is clear that you make it very clear in the beginning that what you were doing was not any criminal activity, it was undercover, then I think that you are fine. Again, in the court of law, what is important is public interest. So it's also about the subject that you have chosen. Is it in the public interest? What are the privacy issues associated with it? And I think that usually public interest has always triumphed over privacy issues.
Imagine you have to write down a list, the successful investigations and the unsuccessful one, the ones you didn't get the result you were waiting for or you fought for. Maybe you felt frustrated about some investigation, they didn't give you, people are not in jail, they escape the law.
Well, yes, there's been a couple of stories that, and I guess it's with all of us. Sometimes you don't just get it 100%. You get it partly. I recall I dressed as a female into an orphanage to do a story in Osu Children's Home of Hell. And the impact wasn't that great. And I still wish that perhaps maybe I could have done a little bit more than I did in that story. Again, one could also look back to a film I did for Al Jazeera in Sierra Leone called Timber. I did it with my colleague called Sorio Samora. And we were able to film the vice president of Sierra Leone in some timber issues. It went through the judicial process in South Africa, but in Sierra Leone, but eventually we were not able to make it because we didn't win. I wish that perhaps the story would have been done in another way to be able to triumph. It doesn't mean that the story was not great, but I mean, there are lessons we learn every day from which story. Every story has its own lessons. So for me, it's about impact on society. And I just wish that these stories could have impacted more.
The most successful ones, some investigation, you were able to let some law was, I don't know, change the law or change the situation.
I've done quite a number of investigations that have led to the changing of legislation. I remember Madhouse, which we are just about to see now. When I did it, it helped. I went into a psychiatric hospital as a patient and stayed there for about 3 months, where I documented human rights abuses, where you could see officials selling heroin and cocaine to inmates, and I got a fair share of it. And when the story was published, it led to a huge debate in Ghana, and as a result of that, the mental health bill has been passed, and it is the effort of not just me, but other civil society people who pushed the frontiers and ensured that this bill was passed. Again, we have something we call the Transfer of Convicted Persons Bill, which also, I was in Bangkok, Thailand, and I went into the Bangkok prisons as a Catholic priest, and eventually documented a lot of issues that happened, not just among Ghanaian prison inmates, but also within other African inmates. And when the thing was brought, it led to a very huge debate in the Parliament of Ghana, where eventually the Transfer of Convicted Persons Bill was passed. So these are some of them. There are quite a number of them if I want to mention. But legislative is very important, because when you are able to impact on the law, it stays for a very long time, and it has a more meaningful impact on society.
Are we ready with the video? I can't see. Okay. If we are not ready, okay. Okay, we are going to. This is about the Madhouse. Okay, Anas, if you can please tell us what is going on.
So this was me at the hospital filming. This was a girl who was an epileptic patient and was always beaten up in the hospital by staff. And I followed this girl and filmed the activities, and it led to a very huge impact. And what you are seeing is an official who was beating her up. And Madhouse really has a lot more in it. but because of time constraints, I'll just leave it here and then go. Can we continue?
But tell me, how did you manage to enter? You were a patient?
Yes, I first enrolled in as a patient. You would have gone and learned much more about what to say, and it's done by a team. So we do proper research, and we know exactly what to tell a doctor. And it doesn't just happen in a day. You should have gone to reviews for a longer time. Your behavior should change. As it keeps changing, then that's when the doctor begins to realize that you ought to be admitted.
We have another video shot in a prison in Ghana. That is also, it's very, it's terrible what is going on in this prison, because sometimes we think that prisons in Europe, in Italy, are in bad conditions. But let's see this one. Please, if you can. Okay, we are going in.
Well, this is in Sawan prisons, and this was the morgue.
How many people?
This is the mortuary. I had a friend who I followed in that investigation, and he died. So this is what took me into the morgue. And I must say, as we speak now, this video has not been officially released. And also, there were a lot of overcrowding within the prisons. And as you can see, drugs were always there. And the sanitary conditions, like you can see, were very, very bad within the prison. These are things that is originally unknown to the Ghanaian populace. You know, very, very overcrowded, food scarcity. As you can see, this was where we were going to toilet. And I stayed in here for quite a while to be able to film all this detail.
How long did you stay there?
It would have been done successively. We did it for 3 months. And this is the kind of food we get. Very horrible food. And these are our plates we line up every day to eat in the afternoon. A lot of oil. We just take it. I mean, that was the feel. And as I speak, I remember deeply, this was the marijuana base where we exchange. These are all banned substances within the prisons, and you never know until you are there. If you are there, you're going to see all these things. It was quite an exciting story.
Exciting, but very terrible for you. I mean, you used to go to the toilet and eat.
Well, I think that undercover is all about psyching yourself up. Before you go here, you already know. Like I was saying, this story is not being published because there are a few sources within the prisons who are still not out. And it's a 1-hour documentary, and I have a feeling that if all comes out, they are going to identify 2 of them, and they will have issues. So because of that, as I speak, this thing is just a bit of it I have shown, but the full thing has not been published. But you get acquainted. I mean, you get yourself in the mood, and that's it.
How people, the public opinion, react usually to this?
Like I said earlier, what I do doesn't just come out of my head. It's about people sending various issues that they think is dear to their hearts. So usually it resonates with the people. And the people are usually very, very happy about what they see. And I mean, it's usually a big thing. I mean, we organize a premiere, and we usually are able to fill the place with 10,000, 8,000, 6,000 people, all in a hurry. And it's usually free. Nobody charges anything. Because it's about the people's journalism. It's not any financial or money-making machine. It's about making sure that the people see that the kind of journalism we do is impacting on their lives.
But have you ever been in some situation in which you thought, okay, this situation is very serious, it's very dangerous, I think to give in to, okay, I can go on, it's better if I give in?
Stories usually would take time. Sometimes you are uncomfortable. Sometimes even the timing of the release is not just good enough because it might have detrimental effects on the entire nation. So I make the determination, but I try my best to do my best in every story. But like you said, sometimes there are discomforts.
And some dangerous situation. Can you tell us some situation?
Many of them. Usually I'm not the type who want to brood about dangers because they are inherent in the work. Like I have said, it's part of the heat in the kitchen. And we have to do our best to prevent them. But as we try to prevent them, we should know that it's part of our job. And a lot of near-death situation, a lot of trailing, but I don't usually want to spend my time on that. And I don't think it's only synonymous with me. I think many other journalists, my colleagues here in Italy will tell you their stories of how the problems they have with the mafia and all that. So I think that is what it is.
You know, your mask here is quite simple. It's very simple. Because you used to wear disguises which are very complicated. So what is the most outrageous disguises you ever worn, and in which occasion?
Well, I think I must dove my hats to the prosthetic makers in London. They do a very good job. If you tell them, you just have to tell them what the situation is. But another caution is that they have warned me not to say too much, because they are still working. So a lot of the disguises are interesting, but I'd rather withhold a little bit and still give the credit to them, because they do quite a good job.
We are ready for other videos. Are you interested in the videos? Okay. So that we prepare the other one, because we can understand better, I think, watching this video. But, okay, meanwhile, just one question before. Don't you ever fear to become yourself the object of investigation? I mean, you can go out now and people can chase you, can try to know your identity.
It's all part of the package. You can be a subject of investigation. After all, I attended school with people who know me. But you see, the whole thing about undercover is that if I sat with you in the classroom and you saw my face, the purpose of undercover is to be able to change that face, so that when I pick up that story, you, the person I sat with in that classroom, you are unable to identify me. That is the whole essence. So, assuming without admitting that I have taken off my mask, you never know what is behind. But even if it was my face, how sure are you that the next story I'm doing, it is that same face you are going to see? That's why I always clap for the prosthetic guys, because they do quite a wonderful job.
Is your family happy with you, with your job?
Well, I guess it's a matter of time. I mean, it's repetitive, so you have to adjust yourself to the situation. I don't know what some of them think, but we've gone through the grill and the mill, and look, there's urgency for the work. Like I said, it borders on human lives, that you sometimes cannot just have time to be thinking about people's comfort and all that. There are children who are suffering from hunger, malnourished children, and they are dying each day. So some of these issues don't come up at all.
Thank you. We are ready for some other videos. And as before, if you can help us to understand. Okay.
For centuries, some West African communities have branded children born deformed or with disabilities as evil spirits. In 3 weeks of investigation, I've already met 14 individuals who admitted they killed spirit children.
Please.
None of these said they were willing to poison.
This film is about spirit children. They were children who were being killed in Ghana and Burkina Faso. The man you just saw is a soothsayer. He claims to have spirits, which is able to tell which child to kill. And he had killed over 400, 500 babies. And they are just babies who are born of deformities and nothing else.
From here, they will keep patient vigil.
So I combined with the police force. And then I built a prosthetic baby.
They still don't know it's a replica.
So they get ready to kill that child. And I go in with the police and we arrest them. As we speak, they are behind bars and they are being prosecuted in the court of law. Pause a little bit. Look, this is pause.
This is another
pause.
Story. Pause a little bit if you can stop it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So you see, these are the issues I'm talking about. This is very dear to the heart of the African. This is a myth in a community that has led to the death of hundreds of children who are born of deformities. How do you break this mystery? If I had not gone undercover to expose the person who does the rituals. Now, how can a ritualist tell me that a baby that I have built out of prosthetics is an evil child. I mean, it exposes the lack of sense in some of these things. And it is only the African who can tell his society that, look, my people, this thing that we have believed in for 500 years, it is not true. These people are liars. They are only killing innocent children. So for me, this was a very, very important story that needed to be done by an African, and that needed to have the hardcore evidence to show to people. The next one we are seeing is the spell of the albino. It's the same thing in Tanzania,
we can
Mozambique. Let me explain, and then we go to Mozambique and other places. Albinos, the body parts of albinos are chopped. They are supposed to be used for rituals. And the same people who call themselves herbalists or traditional soothsayers claim that when you chop the body parts of these people, you're able to make concoctions that make you rich. Meanwhile, they themselves are not rich. So if you don't show that hardcore evidence to the people in the community and the society, they don't get to believe. So I teamed up with Isaac in Tanzania, and we did the spell of albino. Please proceed with the video.
It's the start of our undercover investigation, and it's time to get involved myself. Isaac gives me the contact of a witch doctor who is suspected of being involved in the albino trade. I pose as a customer who wants to become rich. He continues for half an hour talking about curses, black magic, and the need of special medicine to boost my luck and success. That's it. It's time to scare him with my arm.
Tell him I brought him a present. You should take this. Take it. He says what? Sorry for what?
We got him.
Yes, good.
My name is Aremeyaw Anas. My anonymity is my secret weapon. And this time, I am using it against a new enemy, gold scammers.
You're dealing with criminals. You can't predict what they will do.
We were first taken to a national bank, where we were told the rest of the gold will be deposited for safekeeping. A later checkup at the bank's head office revealed that they offer no such facility to receive or store gold. To bust these people today, we would have to take the risk of going with them. They had told us to leave the money at our hotel, and only after the gold had been weighed would Patrick return with Bilal to receive payment. Meanwhile, Bilal and Patrick left to collect the payment. It was crunch time.
Charlie, come down from the car. Come on.
And so our investigation came to a successful conclusion.
So you see, these are people who deprive our nations of the needed revenue. These were investors who had come to invest, and many of them come to the African continent to help out. And yet we have fraudsters who turn around and defraud these people. Eventually, at the end of this investigation, these people have been arrested, and as I speak, they are before the law courts. Let's move on to the next stories as we...
Maybe the last one, because the time is running out. Let's go with it.
International aid agencies donate millions of dollars of food aid to Ghana every year. It's meant to keep malnourished children alive.
The people who are stealing and selling this food are the very ones whose job it is to make sure hungry children get enough to eat. A man in one of the major towns in the north, Navrongo, was selling boxes of donated food. Inside his house, a huge supply of food aid ready for sale. It was time to bring in the police. Out of those arrested, only the nutrition officer was ultimately charged. The others were helpers and didn't know the goods had been stolen.
Nigeria's fake physicians are taking a heavy toll on unsuspecting patients. 2 African journalists go deep undercover into the disturbing world of quack doctors.
It's time to go undercover. One fake doctor, Deacon Austin Awoto, seen here in the car, is getting away with an outrageous scam. But Anas plans to give him a dose of his own medicine.
I'll go into that place and pitch him.
Anas sketches out his plan. The police take up station outside the clinic. Inside, Iguodala carries out his bogus examination, heads to the back room, presumably to pick up his dirty syringe. Terrified, Anas lifts off the bed and follows him. The police forced him to wear his stethoscope to publicly shame him as a fake doctor.
Now say you are a doctor, put it to your neck. Put it to your neck.
Episode, Aremeyaw Anas and Rosemary Rabuni investigate the Nigerian conmen promising to cure infertility and the maternity clinics selling babies for cash.
Today, I've come here to meet my colleague, Rosemary Nwabuni, for us to try and uncover a baby selling syndicate. We have made an appointment with one such medic, Mr. Akimbode Demilola. He operates from a pharmacy in Delta State. He has all the trappings of a medical doctor, but alas, none of the qualifications.
No problem.
The doctor examines each of us behind the curtain. He uses a mysterious little device, the size of a smartphone, which he holds in his hand and waves over our stomachs. Within minutes, he is satisfied with the examination and hides the device in his pocket. He also diagnoses me with pelvic inflammatory disease, an infection of the female reproductive organs. In 2012, child rights activist and lawyer James Ibo suddenly found himself dealing with human trafficking.
For the past 1 year, we recorded over 20 children disappearing in Cross River State. We don't know if they were adopted because there's no record of adoption.
The woman said that she's going to take me to refuge home, that she will take care of me, and she will give me everything that I want. Then, when I deliver, that she's going to take the child from me. And sometimes, they sold the baby out.
We wanted to find out if babies are still being taken by the illegal baby trade. We are going undercover, posing as a married couple, desperate for a child. Here at Destiny's Child Orphanage in Ulako, we are amazed to discover how openly one employee would offer to sell us a baby.
So the money instantly brings smiles onto their faces.
Young girls, have been turned into baby-making machines.
After paying to register, we got a call the next day from the woman at Destiny Child Home to tell us they had found a baby for us.
Hello, madam.
Good morning. That is ending of this month or December.
But it's not just the staff at some orphanages who sell babies. A wider network is said to exist, operating behind a front of trained doctors in real clinics.
Instead of all these children to be wasted and aborted and people that run into all these women affairs commission and they save the babies. The people that are looking for children will come and adopt them. Even Christ was adopted by Joseph.
On our third attempt, we finally got to meet the boss, Dr. O'Hary himself.
Look, as soon as possible.
Several days later, a second nurse from Basic Clinic called to tell us a baby was coming up for sale.
One woman is at labor now, so we are watching out. Maybe, I don't know whether it is a girl or a boy. But for now, it's keep 900,000 naira.
We were not able to care for a stranger's child ourselves, so we backed out of the deal. Our investigation has shone a light on parts of a sinister network. It involves genuine doctors and cynical staff in orphanages who will sell vulnerable children to the highest payer.
Okay. You prepare a hidden camera for me. Right after this.
Aremeyaw Anas. Now, he is a Ghanaian investigative journalist who disguises himself in so many different ways.
Courageous journalists like Anas, who risked his life to report the truth.
Anas is a big name in our country. But when journalists begin to play James Bond, it's troubling.
Now, from the second paragraph, we move to the neck of the story. And the neck must be nothing but the facts. Now, what you see here is me in disguise. What you see here is me dressed as a sheik. What you see here is me disguised as a rock.
Journalism is a weapon. It's an asset. It's a means to an end.
I'm in handcuffs with him right now.
Yes, we are in handcuffs.
Exciting.
What you are going to see now is the judges, the investigation into the judges, which is called Justice, which aired on Al Jazeera. I just let you get a little bit of the clip, and then we wrap up on that. Please proceed.
This is the story of the biggest undercover sting in the history of Africa and the extraordinary man who carried it off.
It doesn't matter who you are, wherever you are hiding. I come with my cameras.
Some of the most trusted people in the land allegedly took bribes and betrayed their public duty.
Even if it's one judge who sells justice, justice sold is the most dangerous commodity on earth.
Al Jazeera has been recording what happened.
At the end of the investigations, we got 34 judges.
Huh?
34, yes.
Ajet Nassam is one of Ghana's most senior judges, sitting in the High Court and dealing with the most important cases.
Gabriel played the middleman's role. He would lead us to the judge. Of course, as you can see, we give him his share. Not much, but he takes it.
After 2 years undercover, Anas and his Tiger Eye investigative team went public in September. The decision would provoke huge controversy, death threats, and a sometimes uncomfortable spotlight on their own methods. In Tamale, northern Ghana, Anas's investigators went to see if they could influence the outcome of a rape case. It was an appeal hearing.
This is Ansuji Abo. Ansuji Abo is a well-respected High Court judge.
The judge is anxious nobody should know that he accepted the cash.
I beg you. And sit down. Let this case remain this way.
Okay, my lord. Okay.
Anas's team take a traditional gift, bags of yams and more cash. Film editors have cut the material down into a blockbuster 3-hour documentary, which Anas wants to show to as many people as possible. He's arranged a series of free screenings at Accra's conference centre. It's a move that will upset his opponents and spark a legal battle. John Enda Bugri is one of a number of lawyers acting for the judges named and shamed in the film. He opposes the screening. As the crowd scramble for the tickets, what they don't know is that the film may not be shown after all. Anas is smuggled into the conference centre where the screening is due the following day.
1 moment.
Coincidentally, this is the same hall where years before, President Obama had singled him out for his work. The screening may be in real doubt, but Anas is hoping he'll still be a national hero at this time tomorrow. Thousands of people have been given free tickets to see the undercover epic, which features 34 judges filmed allegedly accepting bribes.
People from all walks of life joined long queues earlier at the conference centre to catch a glimpse of the video.
A police convoy escorts Anas's car because he's received several death threats.
This is Justice Derry. He's one of the judges who have really tormented me in this investigation. He's filed many, many suits. This is Mayor. He's a fixer to Justice Derry. He actually said that normally it's 10,000 plus when you're dealing with the likes of Justice Derry because he's a big judge.
Newly qualified graduates are called to the bar in Ghana. This is a joyful occasion, but Anas's expose has also cast a major cloud over the proceedings. The saga has not impressed the Chief Justice.
sometimes it takes a spark, just a spark. And I think Anas has provided that spark for the whole edifice to blow up, for people to wake up and say, no more, something has to be done.
Okay, thank you very much. Very impressive. We took some time because it was interesting to go through some of the investigations. Sometimes it seems they are movies, but actually it's reality. Let's just summarize. We don't have much time. What we have seen, but very short because I would like to close with some.
Well, basically what we saw in there was the sale of babies in Nigeria, where babies are put out for sale. And another one that you saw was also about quack doctors who operate in Nigeria, and the fact that they will do everything to make their money. And then perhaps the last one you saw would have been on the judges, who I have already spoken extensively about. But like I was saying, it's all about the people. The work ought to resonate with the people. And if it does resonate with the people, then the real impact. So that when work is finished, it doesn't even become your property. It becomes a property of the people of Ghana. And whichever place we are talking about on the continent, people are interested because they want to know. They are interested because they know that the issues that have come up are issues that border on their lives.
But I mean, some days ago I was reading an article about the albinos, and I mean, the problem is far to be resolved. So do you sometimes feel frustrated because of all this job? I mean, this commitment, you can't see the results.
There would always be difficulties in making sure that you move society from one stage to the other. And like I said, there's a period that the West has gone through already. When you read history, journalists have done same work in other countries. So we have to know that in order to be able to make a successful change, you have to be determined, you have to be focused. There will be a lot of setbacks. So yes, sometimes we feel the setbacks are real. We don't expect that one story will change the entire society, but we expect that one story can impact on the lives of some sections of the society. Like I have always said, extreme remedies are the most appropriate for extreme diseases, and I belong to the extreme remedy.
Is there any chance you are going to share with us the investigations you are been working on very, very shortly?
Well, I wish I could give you details, but I can only say just keep your fingers crossed. It's very explosive, and I can only say stay tuned, and it's likely to air on Al Jazeera. Okay.
Will there ever be a day when you decide to uncover your handsome face?
I think that it's all about, if my journalism is a product of my society, maybe we should just wait. One day, society will say, okay, now no more work. Let us see your face. Then I would decide to do that. But on a more serious note, there's a lot of work to be done. I think that I'm committed to the work. And when there is no need for undercover journalism, I won't spend my time doing it. I'll just stay off it and do something better. But once we are getting an opportunity to impact on the lives of our people, we should take it, and we should happily take it, because that may be the only chance we'll get in history to do it.
And the very last question here is Anas Aremeyaw Anas your real name?
Yes, Anas Aremeyaw Anas is my real name, and there's no aliases about it. It's my personal name, and I have used it since birth, and I continue to use it.
Thank you, Anas, for being with us.
Thank you.
And thank you, all of us, for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.